the Chi-Town experience on the flight. Let me go tune in to Keek on the mic. He gon' make sure we get our news and highlights. When you get on YouTube, you better hit the likes.
Hey, what's going on, Bears fans? Thank you so much for joining me for another episode of Keek on the Mic, the podcast all about the Chicago Bears. As always, if you're new to the channel, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Bears fans, if I go any further with today's episode of Keek on the Mic, I want to give a huge shout out to the sponsor of today's video, and that is BetUS. As always, make sure you guys head over to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000. You guys also can get 125% on your second and third deposits as well. And you guys actually can go place your bets on who you think the next Chicago Bears head coach will be. Obviously, you look at this list, you got Cliff Kingsbury at plus 300, Ben Johnson at plus 350, Mike Vrabel plus 400, among others, and Thomas Brown's not even included on this list, but it's going to be a pretty interesting next couple of months for the Chicago Bears as they try to find their next leader of their organization. Once again, I am joined by Isaiah Fry. How you doing, Isaiah?
I'm good. How you doing?
Doing pretty well. I think the result of the Lions game was unfortunate, but I think it's exactly what needed to happen for the Bears to finally make history. What's your initial reaction to not only the ending of that game, but the Bears actually finally pulling the trigger, firing a coach mid-season?
Regarding the end of the game, unbelievable. It's just total mismanage of time, and to watch that live was just frustrating. I can't even imagine just the diehard fans and how they felt in that moment. But it was good for Chicago, man. I think it was time to move on, split ways. I think, for both sides. You can even make the argument that that Eberflus kind of was happy that it happened to him too. So it was time. It was time to move on.
Yeah, it's actually kind of crazy because, following that loss to the Lions, once again, it was another heartbreaker, a head scratcher for Bears fans where, just mismanagement of the clock, especially when you have a timeout available and you just let the clock run out. And was absolutely insane. But I guess Kevin Warren, Bears president, and Ryan Poles, the GM of the Bears, stormed out of their suites after the game, went down to the locker room. And you have to understand that Ryan Poles and Kevin Warren never really stay in the locker room for too long. But I guess there was stuff going down in the locker room. I guess Jalen Johnson was in Matt Eberflus's face. I guess he was saying some colorful language. And I think that was the final straw that he officially lost the locker room. Apparently, Matt Eberflus went in there and was like, it's okay, guys. We'll rally and we'll get together. And I guess Jalen Johnson just lost it. So you obviously been in a bunch of NFL locker rooms. Do you think Jalen Johnson did the right thing by lashing out on Matt Eberflus?
No, I'm never for players talking to your coach like that. There's a level of respect that you have to give them regardless of how you feel about them.
Right.
So I don't necessarily agree. Is the way that he feels valid? Absolutely. But as far as a player talking to a coach like that, I've never been for that. I'm a coach now, and I would lose my mind if one of my players ever attempted to talk to me like that. I know it's a different type of level that we're talking about, but still, you shouldn't talk to your coach like that. So.
Yeah, Jalen Johnson came out the next day and he's like, it's just the frustrations got the best of me.
Right.
He's like, as a man, I do understand. It's a business, but he's like, I just think in the moment, he's like, enough's enough. The way that we've been losing games over the past month or month and a half, I think players were just enough is enough. And they got what they want. Matt Eberflus is now gone. I did want to talk to you a little bit more about this situation because obviously the next day they allowed Matt Eberflus to have his morning after game press conference. And Matt Eberflus was just insinuating that, he was confident that he was going to be the head coach for the 49ers game. And then after the fact, they fire him about an hour later. Today, during the press conference, Kevin Warren and Ryan Poles made it very clear that they were basically unaware that he was in the press conference, or they knew that he had his press conference, but they didn't make their decision yet. They were in a meeting with George McCaskey discussing the situation of Matt Eberflus. And now it's kind of becoming an issue. And it seems like the Chicago Bears coaching search is already kind of in trouble already just because of the way that they handled it. Reports, according to Hogan Jans, it's a podcast that covers the Chicago Bears as well. They're reporting that several people around the NFL were appalled by how the Bears handled that situation, including potential coaching candidates. So my question for you is that if you were Ben Johnson, a high candidate, maybe a possible next Chicago Bears head coach, how would you take how the Chicago Bears handled that situation with Matt Eberflus.
I'm definitely considering it if they're offering me a job at the end of the season. I mean, you got to look at their track record. I mean, you got to go all the way back to 2012. We'll take it all the way back to 2012 and how they handled that situation.
Right.
A 10-6 season. So yeah, man. I'm a firm believer if somebody shows you something, you believe it. And I think this is who the Chicago Bears are and how they've handled their franchise in the meantime. And I think if you're Ben Johnson, man, you got to take all those things into consideration when making a decision if you want to be the coach of the Chicago Bears.
Yeah, and it's unfortunate because once again, this is going to be George McCaskey's sixth head coaching hire since he's taken over as the CEO or owner of the Chicago Bears. And it's unfortunate because I think deep down they do want to win, but they just haven't found the right formula to pick the right head coach or the right coaches in general. You can even talk about the blunder of Shane Waldron and maybe not hiring Thomas Brown over Shane Waldron. I know it's a Matt Eberflus problem, but obviously the McCaskeys, Ryan Poles, the Bears organization hired Matt Eberflus that led to Shane Waldron, right? So there's a lot of great candidates. Once again, Isaiah, if you were the general manager of the Chicago Bears, you're in Ryan Poles' position. You have Cliff Kingsbury. Obviously, he has connections to Caleb Williams. He's going to be a high candidate. You have Ben Johnson. Look what he's done with the Detroit Lions. Joe Brady, the offensive coordinator for the Buffalo Bills. Mike Vrabel has to have head coaching experience. And, of course, Thomas Brown, your interim head coach. Who are you hiring, Isaiah?
Ben Johnson's number one on my list. I think, the proof is in the pudding what he's doing in Detroit. He's made them electric, and they haven't said that in Detroit for years. So watching him and how he's been operating his system out there, man, I think that's a no-brainer. If you're able to get him, you go get him. But I also like Mike Vrabel. I like Cliff, but Cliff hasn't proven to any of us that he's been a good head coach
Right.
when he's had that opportunity. So he would be third on my list if I had to choose. But I love Ben Johnson. I like Mike Vrabel as a number 2 candidate.
And I know we talked about this maybe in the past because I know we've probably talked, one time or another. I think we started doing the podcast together prior to Matt Eberflus being named the head coach. So I think this is the second time that we've been through this process together.
Right.
How much voice should Caleb Williams have in this decision? If you feel like he's the franchise quarterback, I know he's only going to be a second-year player, but if he came to you and said, hey, Ryan, I really like Cliff Kingsbury and Ben Johnson, would you take his recommendation under consideration?
Absolutely, especially if you're Ryan Poles, man. You're married to Caleb right now. You guys are in a marriage, and for order for both you guys to have a happy ending at this franchise and continue to keep your jobs, you got to make the right decision. So you for sure take his consideration. We know he's young and he probably doesn't understand the business side of it, which is normal at this point. But he needs to be in a comfortable situation to where he's being able to excel and continue to get better like he is right now. So with Caleb's opinion matters for sure.
Right. And for me, I've always said this on multiple episodes right here on Kick on the Mic. He is the most important player within the Chicago Bears organization. I understand that we have guys like Jalen Johnson, DJ Moore, Cole Kmet, even guys like TJ Edwards, Tremaine Edmonds on the defense side of the football. But to me, it's all about Caleb Williams. And I know there's a lot of people that are pretty high on Mike Vrabel, maybe Aaron Glenn, the defensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions. But I think it has to be an offensive-minded guy that can lead a locker room, command respect, and ultimately just take accountability when sometimes things go wrong, right? And that's something when you look at the Chicago Bears history of head coaches, Mark Trestman didn't do that at a high level. Obviously, Matt Nagy didn't do that at a high level. And then Matt Eberflus did not do that at a high level. I think they struggle commanding the locker room, commanding respect, and just never really taking accountability when accountability was needed, right? So for me, this is the most important hire in Chicago Bears history. I'd like to say that if they don't get this hire right, I don't think the Chicago Bears will ever be good in my lifetime.
We have a long ways to go, man. So I think we're gonna have some opportunities, man. But I agree with you. I think more so than picking the offense and defensive side of the ball, I think the biggest thing and the most important thing that the Chicago Bears should do is what you just mentioned, is finding a coach that's a leader of men, right? That's the best description that you can give a head coach. You look at guys like Lovey. Lovey was definitely a leader of men. That was his.
Right.
That's what made him a great head coach, right?
Right.
You look at guys like Mike Tomlin, leader of men, right?
Right. Right.
I would even go as far as to say is Mike Vrabel's that type of guy.
Right.
But I would still give Ben Johnson a chance just for the simple fact of what he's doing in Detroit. He's earned that opportunity. But like I said, man, Mike Vrabel's no slouch. That'd be a very good second candidate if that first one doesn't work out.
For sure. And Isaiah, before we move over to our pregame show of the San Francisco 49ers game on Sunday, I want to talk to you a little bit about Thomas Brown as well, because obviously he's the interim head coach for the next 5 games. I think he has a really special and unique opportunity. We've seen what he's been able to do as OC over the last couple of games, has really transformed Caleb Williams and really helped develop Caleb Williams over these last couple of games. And now he's becoming a hot candidate, and this is why they are giving him this opportunity. It's like a mini audition. What would Thomas Brown need to do? And let's say, once again, you are Ryan Poles right now. You're the GM of the Chicago Bears. What would Thomas Brown need to show you in these next 5 games to really put him in consideration for the next Chicago Bears head coach?
I like what he's doing, and I think he's a hot candidate. Moving forward, I think for him to become the head coach of the Chicago Bears, the only way that happens is if you win the next 5 games. And I think if any other result, I don't see it happening, just because if you're Ryan Poles, you're looking at a situation where you want a clean house, right?
Right.
I said a couple weeks ago or last week that I actually wouldn't mind seeing, if the Ben Johnson situation doesn't work out, them hiring Mike Vrabel and them keeping Thomas Brown as the offensive coordinator, because I don't see him getting a head coaching job if it's not with the Chicago. Yeah, you know what I mean? So that's another possibility too. I just don't see him being the head coach unless they go 5-0 and they win convincingly, and the way that we all want to see the Chicago Bears win.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting because there's actually rumors out there, because people are like, oh, Thomas Brown does get the head coaching job and is the next coach of the Chicago Bears. Would he keep the same staff, or would he clean house? I guess there's rumors out there already saying that he would clean house, and his DC pick would be Robert Saleh. And even though Robert Saleh would come with a 3-4 scheme, and right now the Bears are in a 4-3, I still really like Robert Saleh as a DC. I still think if Ben Johnson gets the head coaching job for the Bears, I think Robert Saleh needs to be the top candidate for the Bears DC, right? So for me, I think that's going to carry a lot of brownie points. And I get where you're coming from about, hey, winning the next 5 games. Obviously, to me, Thomas Brown has like that Mike Tomlin vibe. When he speaks, he's able to command the locker room. Obviously, he demands respect, not only from the media, but other coaches, but the players in the locker room as well. I think it may only take him going 4-1, 3-2, maybe beating Green Bay at the end of the year. I really do. And I think that's why the Chicago Bears are putting him in this position, because we talked about this. They could have easily made Richard Hightower the head coach. They could have easily probably promoted Eric Washington as the interim head coach, but no, they chose to promote Thomas Brown. That's saying something, that he has a rare opportunity. And it's going to be really interesting to see at the end of the year if he does go 3-2 or even 5-0, like you said, and see where that puts him in the rankings for the next Bears head coach.
Yeah, definitely. I mean, he has a great opportunity. He's doing a great job, man. Regardless of how they finish the year, he needs to be celebrated, and he needs to be compensated well at the end of the season, regardless of where he goes, because this isn't the best position to be in for any coach. And I think he's doing a fantastic job in handling it. And I'd be interested to see if he's able to continue that moving forward as a head coach, because being an offensive coordinator has a lot of responsibilities. Being a head coach brings on a whole nother monster that you got to deal with, that taking your time away and all that. So it's gonna be. I'm gonna be curious to see how this plays out.
Yeah, over the next 5 weeks, we're going to see what Thomas Brown's able to do as the head coach, because like you just mentioned, it's different responsibilities. Now you're on the field. Now you're not only the offensive play caller, you are overseeing different areas of the team, right? Trying to rally everyone together. And it's been a long season for the Chicago Bears, but it seems like the players already pretty receptive of Thomas Brown. And I know a lot of players love his energy as well. So it's going to be a long next couple of months. But as always, Bears fans, comment down below who you think the next Chicago Bears head coach will be. I think Isaiah and I are both in agreement that it will probably be Ben Johnson, the offensive coordinator from the Detroit Lions. I just hope the situation with the whole press conference with Matt Eberflus doesn't ruin our chances, because I think he is I hate to say this, a generational coordinator candidate in this head coaching cycle. So, Isaiah, here we go. Now the Bears are heading to California. They're heading to where Isaiah and I live here in Cali, and they're going to take on the San Francisco 49ers. And at the beginning of the season, I was absolutely terrified of this matchup. But now when you're looking at it a banged up 49ers team. They're sitting at 5-7. Bears sitting at 4-8. They're coming off a 35-10 blowout loss to the Buffalo Bills, where they ended up losing Christian McCaffrey once again for the next 6 weeks. Obviously, their backup running back is banged up. I know they have some injuries on the offensive line as well, and Trent Williams. I think Bosa's going to be out. This is just an unfortunate series of events for the 49ers. With their injuries, and they're definitely not the same Niners team due to those injuries. So when you look at this game, Isaiah, what chances do you give the Bears, or what's your initial reaction to this matchup?
I think it's a weird game, man, because you get a new head coach for the Chicago Bears. You got all those injuries with the Niners, who normally are pretty sure-handed in what they do, and this year hasn't just been their year. I think going into it, man, I think you have to look at Chicago and say, I think they're favored in this game, just because in a weird way, man, like, I don't know if you notice the trend, and whenever coaches get replaced mid-season, that first game when that new head coach comes in, like the Antonio Pierce, they always play better. I don't know what it is, man. So if I had to pick, man, I'm picking Chicago to win this game just for that simple fact alone.
Yeah, and I like to say, you just brought up a really, really good point. First and foremost, the 49ers are, I believe, a 4.5-point favorite for this game, and rightfully so. But whenever you fire a coach midseason and you bring in a type of coach like Thomas Brown that showed so much energy and brought life back into this offense, and Caleb Williams, I don't even know what to expect from the Chicago Bears football team, not only on the offensive side, but the defensive side as well, because the Bears defense was actually kind of slowly starting to regress under Matt Eberflus as well, and that was his bread and butter. But now Eric Washington is taking over. I'm not sure what to expect from that situation, but it wouldn't surprise me at all to see the Chicago Bears come away with the win in San Francisco this weekend.
Yeah, it wouldn't either. Like, I think they come out with more energy. They're going to be revived. I think they're going to be ready to play, man. So I would not be surprised for them to come out with a W this week.
So obviously this is still, when I look at the 49ers, I still think they are a pretty good football team. Obviously they lost some games early on in their division that could have easily went their way. Obviously the injuries haven't gone their way. I still really like Brock Purdy as the quarterback. I think the Bears still need to figure out how to get pressure. This is a guy that can do those off-script plays, much like Caleb Williams, and can hurt you with his legs at times. And Brock Purdy is no easy task to try to cover, but I think first and foremost, with Eric Washington now being the new defensive coordinator for the Chicago Bears, over these next 5 weeks, I would love to see the Bears generate more pressure, and I think it needs to start this week against the San Francisco 49ers, especially when he's lacking weapons, especially if Trent Williams is not going to play. I think they're also going to be missing Aaron Banks, their guard, as well, so they're thin on the offensive line. The Chicago Bears need to take advantage this weekend.
They do. It's a game where they need to just, kind of mix some things up, man, and see what hasn't been working and try some new things. Like you said, I think bringing more pressure is going to be the key in this game. And, you got some good DBs back there that can play man. Put them on an island, man. Make them earn their chicken. That's what we always say, earn your chicken. So I think this would be a good game for you, for the defense to bring some pressure.
And that goes for both sides as well, Isaiah. It's like one of those things that you have 5 weeks left. You're mathematically out of the playoffs at this point, sitting at 4-8. Just go out there and play free. Go play good football on all 3 phases. Try to put it all together for these last 5 games. And even if you do win these next 5 games, go 9-8 and miss the playoffs, at least you can take that momentum into next season.
Right. Absolutely. I agree.
So it's one of those things that I think all Bears fans, I can speak for all Bears fans here, is that at this point, all we want to see is Caleb Williams, and you always say this, get 1% better. What do you want to see from Caleb Williams, not only in this weekend's game against the 49ers, but for the remaining 5 weeks?
Just finishing his games. Not saying that any of those games that they've lost prior was his fault, because it wasn't. But I think he has a good opportunity to just get in the habit of finishing it. I think it's an acquired skill that you earn as a quarterback, right? You see guys like Tom Brady that was very, very good at finishing games, right?
Right.
Just other quarterbacks across the league that are able to make their mark in this league by doing that. And if he has an opportunity to do that on Sunday, I think that would be a big step forward in his development, and not only his development, but his confidence too.
I definitely agree, Isaiah. And I know that I've been talking to some Bears fans about this. I know Bears fans are starting to get a little bit excited, but he's currently at 26, a little bit over 2,600 yards passing. I think there's somebody out there saying if he averages 277 yards passing per game for the remaining 5 games, he will become the Chicago Bears' first ever 4,000 yard passer. You think he can get it done?
Yeah, I definitely do. I think that's possible. And that's a great stat to have as a rookie, man, especially in the situation that he's in right now. I think that's positive moving forward.
Right. So I think we both have the Chicago Bears. I don't even want to call it an upset win, but winning this weekend in San Francisco. But what is your score prediction for this Bears versus 49ers game?
I think they win 27-24 this week.
The Bears.
Chicago, yes.
Okay, I thought you said they are going to win.
No, Chicago.
Okay.
I'm picking Chicago this week.
Okay, yeah, I'm also going to take the Chicago Bears by a score of 27-21. I think Caleb Williams is going to come out with a lot of life. I think the whole team's going to come out with a lot of life, but I think Caleb Williams is really going to play free this weekend. It's going to be like, the bad man's gone. I think, Matt Eberflus and Shane Waldron were kind of holding him back. I think he's going to come out and show us why he was the number 1 overall pick in the 2024 NFL draft and get, to me, still a pretty big win over this 49ers team.
Yeah, any win you can get at this point, man, is big, especially with what they've had to deal with this year. And it'd be good for Thomas Brown, man. Like you said, he's in audition right now, so they're going to go out there. If they really want him to be a head coach, they're going to go out there and play hard for him.
Absolutely. So once again, Bears fans, both Isaiah Fry and I both have the Chicago Bears beating the San Francisco 49ers this weekend in Santa Clara. What is your score prediction for this Sunday's matchup against the 49ers? And once again, Isaiah, thank you so much for tuning in with me today.
Absolutely. Thank you for having me.
Yeah, no worries. But as always, Bears fans, make sure you guys continue to hit that subscribe button and the notification to catch all Bears content right here on the podcast. Make sure you follow me on all my social media platforms, and make sure you share this episode of Geek on the Mic with every single Bears fan that you know. And once again, you guys, make sure to head over to betus.com and use promo code YouTube150 for 150% deposit bonus up to $2,000. And also get your second and third deposits for 125% as well. And you guys can place your bet right now on who you guys think the next Chicago Bears head coach will be. Once again, both Isaiah and I believe it will be Ben Johnson. But other than that, we'll be back for an all-new Bears podcast right here on Geek on the Mic. Thanks, guys, and as always, bear down.
You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic. You can go and subscribe, cause I be on it right. You ain't bout it, you ain't bout it, you ain't kick on the mic.